time since we've done one, and this one was heavily requested. Honestly, I was unsure whether I was actually ever going to make this video, because it's not really a topic I thought would suit an ASMR video, but oh my gosh, I think there was one guy who started doing a counter like day 2, day 3 of asking for a Jeffrey Epstein true crime video, so I aim to please. So here I am, selling out. So before we dive into the scandals and whatnot surrounding Jeffrey Epstein, a couple of things to note. Number one, all of this is alleged, of course. Some stuff may have been proven, even that, in my mind, is alleged. I'm going to use the word alleged like it's my own name, okay? Secondly, he is suspected and guilty of a number of crimes that may be quite triggering for some people. I'll always refer to said act as SA. If that is something that triggers you, then I would probably recommend giving this video a miss, to be honest. Go and watch one of my slightly more positive ones. But as is part and parcel with true crime, tends to not be good things that the people do. So you guys asked for it. Here it is. Here is a true crime video on Jeffrey Epstein. So we're going to begin by explaining the life and death of Jeffrey Epstein. So Jeffrey Epstein was found dead on August 10th, 2019 in a Manhattan jail where he was awaiting trial on sex trafficking charges. New York City's medical examiner has ruled his death as a suicide. The money manager was accused of SAing dozens of underage girls, bringing them to his home for massages, during which he did certain things. He was indicted in 2007, but as Julie K. Brown reported at the Miami Herald, he ultimately got just 13 months in a county jail because of a deal signed by U.S. Attorney Alexander Acosta, who would later become Secretary of Labor under President Trump. In July, however, Epstein was arrested in New Jersey and charged with sex trafficking in connection with allegations that he recruited young girls for at his homes in New York and Palm Beach. If convicted, he could have faced 45 years in prison. Epstein said that any encounters he had with his accusers were consensual, and that he believed they were 18 at the time. He pleaded not guilty to the trafficking charges. But disturbing allegations continue to come out since Epstein's death. In a lawsuit that was filed, the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands said that the money manager had run a sex trafficking operation from his private islands, bringing in girls as young as 11. Recipients of donations by Epstein are facing scrutiny. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology, for example, received $850,000 from Epstein, including gifts made after his jail sentence, a January report revealed. Epstein's story is a masterclass in the power dynamics that have been exposed by the Me Too movement, but have yet to truly change. When authorities began investigating Epstein, he assembled a team of private investigators to dig up dirt on the girls who accused him, and the police and prosecutors working the case. Then he and his team of powerful lawyers, including Alan Dershowitz and Kenneth Starr, were able to convince prosecutors to go easy on him, despite disturbing allegations by a growing number of women and girls. Epstein was proud of his collection of famous friends. Oh, it's so hot today, I'm literally sweating, apologies. Epstein was proud of his collection of famous friends, which included Bill Clinton and Donald speculation that some of these friends may have participated in the illicit actions. But because he was able to minimize publicity around the details of his case for so long, he was also able to keep details about anyone else who may have been involved out of the public eye. The fact that Epstein avoided serious punishment for years is a reminder that the American justice system has long been all too willing to ignore the words of girls and women, especially when they accuse a wealthy and influential man. Now that Epstein is dead, the women who say he harmed will not get to face him in court, but the investigation into his crimes is ongoing, and a number of women are pursuing civil claims against his estate. As the results of those legal actions become public, the web of power and influence that protected Epstein and those close to him from scrutiny is finally beginning to unravel. So, Jeffrey Epstein, who died at 66 years old, was known as an influential financier until his 2007 indictment for sex crimes, though there was a good deal of mystery about how exactly he made his money. After working at the investment bank Bear Stearns in the early 1980s, he founded his own firm, J. Epstein & Co. in 1982, advertising his services for those with assets worth more than $1 billion. He was soon managing billions of dollars in client assets, and by 1992, he owned the largest private residence in Manhattan. For tax purposes, he ran his business from the island of St. Thomas in the US Virgin Islands since at least 1996, and near that island, he owned the island of Little St. James. That island was also home to Epstein's foundation, the Jeffrey Epstein the Sick Foundation, best known for donating $6.5 million to Harvard University for the establishment of a mathematical biology and evolutionary dynamics program. In a 2003 Harvard Crimson article on Epstein and his gift to the university, he is described by Harvard luminaries, including Alan Dershowitz, who would later help represent him when Epstein was accused of his crimes in 2007, as brilliant and one of the most pleasant philanthropists. In a 2002 New York Magazine profile, Epstein was described by even those closest to him as mysterious, with many of the sources of his immense wealth remaining largely unknown, and with one acquaintance even comparing him to the Wizard of Oz, implying that there might be less behind the curtain than appearances would otherwise suggest. Michael Stroll, who sued Epstein over a failed business deal in the 2000s, told New York Magazine in 2007, "Everybody who's his friend thinks he's so darn brilliant because he's so darn wealthy. I never saw any brilliance. I never saw him work. Anybody I know that is that wealthy works 26 hours a day. This guy plays 26 hours a day." Epstein was also an accumulator of famous friends, and his connections would later prove extremely important as he attempted to defend himself against the allegations of SA. He gained some measure of fame in the early 2000s for flying President Bill Clinton, actor Kevin Spacey, and comedian Chris Tucker to Africa to tour AIDS prevention and treatment project sites. Clinton would go on to fly multiple times on Epstein's private plane in 2002 and 2003, according to flight logs obtained by Gawker in 2015. Gawker also obtained and published Epstein's address book, which included politicians, actors, and celebrities. In 2002, Epstein described his famous friend as a collection of sorts, saying, "I invest in people, be it politics or science, it's what I do." He was at one point spending $20 million per year to subsidize a group of scientists and their research on topics ranging from Tibetan monks to altruistic behavior. He was also good friends with Donald Trump, who described Epstein to New York Magazine in 2002 as someone who enjoys his social life. The money manager's friends and acquaintances were apparently willing to continue socializing with him, despite his tendency to have eccentric or even downright disturbing ideas. Allegedly, several people say that he wanted to use his New Mexico ranch as a base, where women would be inseminated with his sperm and would give birth to his babies, allegedly. James B. Stewart, Matthew Goldstein, and Jessica Silver Greenberg of the New York Times reported. The idea was not a secret, they write. One scientist recalls Epstein discussing it during a dinner at his townhouse in 2001, allegedly, while another Time source remembers hearing about it from Epstein and at least one other person. The fact that Epstein was able to retain his famous collection of friends, despite talking openly about using himself as the centre of a eugenics experiment, may be a testament to his influence, to his associates' ability to look the other way, or both. Epstein's connections are crucial to understanding his story. They may have helped him get a lighter sentence in 2008, but they're important for another reason too. His friendships with famous people led to speculation that they, too, most notably Clinton and Trump, allegedly might have participated in his A of girls. But because Epstein was able to keep all of the details of his prosecution quiet, it's impossible for the public to know exactly who else was involved in his crimes. By protecting himself, Epstein may have been able to protect his famous friends as well. In the next section, a police investigation found that Epstein had essayed dozens of girls, and he got a shockingly light sentence. So much of Epstein's social life involved very young women. I've known Jeff for 15 years, Trump said in 2002. Terrific guy, he's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do, and many of them are on the younger side. In the 2007 New York Magazine article, Vanity Fair columnist Michael Wolff described flying on Epstein's plane in the 1990s, saying Epstein was followed onto the plane by, how shall I say this, by 3 teenage girls, not his daughters, who were 18, 19, 20, who knows, and model-like. He has never been secretive about the girls, Wolff said. At one point when his troubles began, he was talking to me and said, "What can I say? I like young girls," I said. "Maybe you should say, I like young women." Finally, in 2005, a woman reported to Florida police that a wealthy man had essayed her stepdaughter, according to the Daily Beast. The tip led Palm Beach detectives to investigate. They identified multiple girls who said Epstein had aided them. The case was eventually referred to the FBI, and in 2008, after years of investigation and legal wrangling, Epstein pled guilty to charges of solicitation of prostitution and procurement of minors for prostitution in a deal with federal prosecutors. According to court and police records reviewed by the Miami Herald's Julie Brown, Epstein routinely had underage girls brought to his Palm Beach mansion, where he paid them to give him massages. During the massages, it would often lead to other things. According to the Herald, he would offer them money to go and find more girls, which some of them did, finding recruits at malls and house parties. According to Joseph Riccieri, the lead Palm Beach detective on the case, Epstein was essentially operating a sexual pyramid scheme. Brown identified about 18 women who say they were molested or otherwise essayed by Epstein, and some accounts suggest the total number may be much higher. He told me he wanted them as young as I could find them, Courtney Wild, who says she recruited 70 or 80 girls for Epstein, told Brown. He wanted as many as I could get him, and it was never enough. In response to lawsuits by some of the girls, Epstein has said that they consented to the acts alleged, and that he believed they were 18. In many cases, the effects on the girls were devastating. The women who went to Jeffrey Epstein's mansions as girls tended to divide their lives into two parts, Brown writes. Life before Jeffrey and life after Jeffrey. Wild was a 14-year-old middle school student and cheerleading captain when she met Epstein, Brown writes. She later became addicted to drugs and served 3 years in prison for drug charges. The FBI had prepared a 53-page sex crimes indictment for Epstein in 2007 that could have sent him to prison for life, according to the Herald. Instead, he got a deal with Alexander Acosta, then the US attorney in Miami, which allowed him to serve just 13 months, not in a federal or state prison, but in a private wing of a Palm Beach County jail. He was granted work release to go to a comfortable office for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, despite the fact that the Palm Beach Sheriff's Department prohibited work release for sex offenders. Epstein's deal, called a non-prosecution agreement, granted immunity to any potential co-conspirators, meaning that if any of Epstein's powerful friends were involved in his crimes, they would face no consequences. And Acosta agreed that the deal would be kept secret from the victims, preventing them from showing up in court to try to challenge it. I regret my comment in the intro saying I'm going to use alleged like it was my own name, because I sort of forgot just how disgusting and depraved this man was, and it's clear he did those things. So. Next up, new charges seemed like a new chance for prosecutors to hold Epstein accountable. In July 2019, though, Epstein was arrested at a New Jersey airport upon his return from a trip to France. He was charged with sex trafficking and sex trafficking conspiracy in federal court in New York. If convicted, he could have faced up to 45 years in prison, along with the forfeiture of his Manhattan townhouse, according to the New York Times. Prosecutors weren't worried about double jeopardy in this case, a source told the Washington Post, probably because the New York case includes new victims or new alleged crimes. Significantly, the indictment alleged that between 2002 and 2005, Epstein recruited girls as young as 14, not just to his Palm Beach residence, but also to his Manhattan house. The indictment also states that Epstein knew some of the girls were underage because they expressly told him their age. And the document states Epstein worked and conspired with others, including employees and associates who facilitated his conduct by contacting victims and scheduling their encounters with Epstein. In addition to Epstein, the New York case seemed like it could potentially lead to charge against some of those associates. We hope that prosecutors will not stop with Mr. Epstein, because there were many other people who participated with him and made the sex trafficking possible. David Boyce, a lawyer for some of Epstein's accusers, told the Daily Beast. It also appeared possible that Epstein could give up information on crimes by some of his powerful friends in exchange for a lighter sentence, though former New York prosecutor Mimi Roker wrote in the Daily Beast that he shouldn't expect the ridiculous sweetheart deal he got the first time round. There are probably quite a few important, powerful people who are sweating it out right now, the Miami Herald's Brown said in a July MSNBC appearance. we'll have to wait and see whether Epstein is going to give names. Meanwhile, in July, after repeated calls for his resignation, Acosta announced he was stepping down from his Labour Department post. The new charges also led to a new public allegation. In July, 32-year-old Jennifer Arauz said in an interview with NBC's Today that a young woman approached her outside her New York City high school in '01, engaged her in conversation, and ended up introducing her to Epstein at his New York townhouse. At first she said they just talked, with her telling him about her father's death from AIDS a few years before. But over the next year, Arauz said Epstein manipulated her into giving him massages that ended with him. Then in '02 she said he took things further, and I won't say the statement that is given here, but you can imagine what the horrific man did. For a time, Epstein was markedly forthcoming about some of the allegations against him. In one communication with Palm Beach police in '05, his attorney said, "Mr. Epstein is very passionate about massages. The massages are very therapeutic and spiritually sound for him. That is why he has had many massages." He even donated $100,000 to Ballet Florida purely so the dancers could also have massages. Goodness gracious me. And despite the severity of the crimes he was accused of, Epstein avoided major consequences thanks to his wealth and connections. His investigators and lawyers worked to discredit or intimidate the women and girls who came forward, and the authorities working on the case, according to the Herald. None of this would have been possible without Epstein's substantial fortune, but his relationships with other powerful people may have also played a key role. Epstein's plea agreements refers to unspecified information he supplied to federal investigators, according to Brown. It's not clear what that information was, but Brown notes that Epstein was a key federal witness in the prosecution of two executives with Bear Stearns, the investment brokerage that failed as part of the '08 financial crisis. Epstein had at one time been an investor in a hedge fund managed by those executives, so it's possible that his knowledge about wealthy men helped to keep him out of prison. Ultimately, Brown reports Acosta caved under the pressure. He and his team not only allowed Epstein to avoid a long prison sentence, but also worked with Epstein's lawyer to make sure the case was kept as quiet as possible. Now, despite Epstein's death, investigation and legal action in his case have continued, leading to further revelations about his influence as well as his ability to avoid consequences for the allegations against him. Another lawsuit filed by Denise N. George, the Attorney General of the Virgin Islands, alleges that Epstein brought girls as young as 11 or 12 to his private island, using a database to track their movements, the Times reports. In one case, a 15-year-old girl tried to swim off the island and escape. The suit alleges, but she was captured and Epstein confiscated her passport. Though unique in many ways, Epstein's case is also common in others, one of all too many instances in which victims of SA are ignored or brushed aside when they come from marginalised groups. Women who have come forward to say that singer R. Kelly abused them have faced a similar sort of erasure. As Fox's Constance Grady notes, Kelly has been accused of creating an abusive sex cult of very young women, whom he allegedly isolates, brainwashes, and abuses. It took a groundbreaking investigation by the Indianapolis Star, the brave testimony of dozens of survivors, and perhaps the growing strength of the Me Too movement to finally bring Larry Nassar to justice, who was the USA gymnastics team doctor who was sentenced up to 175 years in prison for abusing more than 100 young athletes since 1997. Meanwhile, for the women who say Epstein abused them, that justice has been elusive. Epstein's death ended his prosecution for the indictment filed in July. However, New York authorities are continuing to investigate Epstein's case, and a number of women are filing suit against his estate. By the way, when I say July, that's sort of the year this is written. I can't quite see when it was written. On behalf of the victims I represent, we would have preferred Jeffrey Epstein lived to face justice, attorney Lisa Bloom said shortly after his death. But, she continued, our civil cases can still proceed against his estate. Victims deserve to be made whole for the lifelong damage he caused. We're just getting started. Yeah, I think that's the true horrific thing about Epstein and everything he did is that, number one, the first time he literally got away with it because he was wealthy, and number two, he escaped any kind of real justice because he killed himself. But hopefully, yeah, as the attorney said at the end, his many victims get at least some kind of reconciliation and closure that they need, because he was clearly a very, very evil man, so obviously it's a very dark topic, horrific crimes, as bad as crimes get, really, in my opinion. Now we're going to move on to we're going to finish this video by taking a look at the sort of belief, which is a bit of a meme, but it's the title, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. Now this isn't in any way to try and detract from, the accounts we just gave and whatnot, and the info we just gave. This is simply, I'm sure all of you will be all too familiar with the sort of, virality of that phrase, Epstein didn't kill himself. So we're going to take a little look into just why some people think that. So as we know, on August 10th, 2019, American financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive in his Metropolitan Correctional Center jail cell, where he was awaiting trial on his charges. According to the Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Prisons official statement, he was transported to a local hospital for treatment of life-threatening injuries and subsequently pronounced dead by hospital staff. The New York City medical examiner ruled Epstein's death a suicide by hanging. Epstein's lawyers challenged that conclusion and opened their own investigation. Epstein's brother Mark hired board-certified forensic pathologist Michael Baden to oversee the autopsy. In late October, Baden announced that autopsy evidence indicated homicidal strangulation more than suicidal hanging. Both the FBI and the US Department of Justice's Inspector General conducted investigations into the circumstances of his death, and the guards on duty were later charged with conspiracy and record falsification. Due to violations of normal jail procedures on the night of Epstein's death, the malfunction of 2 cameras in front of his cell, and his claims to have compromising information about powerful figures, his death generated doubt about his apparent suicide and speculation that he was murdered. At an August 27th hearing, Epstein defense attorney Reed Weingarten expressed significant doubts that Epstein's death was due to suicide. According to Weingarten, when attorneys met with their client shortly before his death, we did not see a despairing, despondent, suicidal person. Epstein's brother Marcus rejected the possibility of Jeffrey's suicide, claiming, "I could see if he got a life sentence, I can then see him taking himself out, but he had a bail hearing coming up." He also claimed his life may also be in danger if Epstein was indeed murdered. In a press press conference about 2 months after Epstein's death, Bill de Blasio, the then mayor of New York City, declined to endorse Chief Medical Examiner Sampson's conclusion, saying, "Something doesn't fit here. It just doesn't make sense that the highest profile prisoner in America, someone forgot to guard him." Former US Attorney and Senate Judiciary Committee counsel Brett Dolman said the death was more than coincidental, considering Epstein's many connections to powerful people. I mean, yeah, it really does seem highly coincidental. It's tricky, isn't it? Well, not really. Well, the bottom line of it is the world is a much better place now he is dead. But on the flip side of that, he deserved to face true justice. Like, dying is just like an easy way out, like there's no punishment there, realistically. But yeah, it does, with all things considered and his apparent so-called powerful connections and the threat of exposing and whatnot, it does seem a little bit too coincidental. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. But yeah, that is going to do it for this evening's video. I hope you did enjoy it. Like I mentioned in the intro, a little bit of a more of a triggering topic, a bit darker, but so is the nature of true crime, and you guys requested it, so I felt like I should deliver, because it's as harrowing as it is still kind of like a monumental piece of like recent crime history, to be honest. But yeah, let me know if there are any other topics or people you'd like to see covered in the true crime series. And on Thursday we'll have a slightly more positive with a nice history of the